and I think for me, part of the plan wasn't so much coming in with exactly what I wanted to do in all of those areas, but more that these are the important areas to address, and kind of starting by getting a lay of the land and then seeing where are things where I can make a difference quickly, and where are the things that need to be, that have kind of more immediate room and need for improvement, and what are the things that can maybe kind of be left alone for the time being, and then kind of more slowly and gradually be improved. In general, I'm not a fan of coming in with like a big plan and a big vision for how everything needs to be different, but rather I want to learn, what's happening today, what's working, what isn't working, and then basically, apply what I've learned in the past, to try and improve things gradually. I mean, some things there might be, big changes might be required, but in general, it's kind of hard to come in from the outside and say, hey, here's these 5 big changes that need to be made. I think for that, you kind of have to establish trust first, and trust is best built by delivering small successes, I find, rather than trying to like have the master plan and implement that.
That's amazing. I mean, your words sound like music to me. I mean, you touched upon so many important aspects so eloquently. So I mean, let's reiterate. So you said when you join a new organization as a head of product, you don't upset the apple cart because you might see 100 things to improve. You don't go and start improving everything. You pick your battles, the ones that are high impact and the ones that move the needle, instead of trying to upset the apple cart. And then you said before you start making these changes, because you are new, you are like an amputated, not amputated, you are like a new organ that is implanted into this organization. So there is lack of trust, or not lack of trust, but trust is neutral, right? So you have not added trust. You have to do all the hard work. But you say that I have always found this very difficult. How do you gather trust and fast? So what you are saying is identify quick wins and deliver them on time. That's how people are going to trust you, instead of coming up with long plans and strategies. So that's amazing.
Exactly. And I think that's why it's so important to just for the first few weeks, just talk to lots of people and see what are the issues that keep coming up again and again, and then see, are there very simple things that we can do there that will seem straightforward, but sometimes, you as the person coming in has also the ability and the mandate to just kind of ask maybe what sounds like stupid questions, but that are maybe the obvious questions, like the elephants in the room, right? So maybe sometimes addressing some of those elephants in the room, and just proposing really simple solutions, can really help there. And I mean, honestly, sometimes it even helps just the fact that you go kind of on a listening tour, and people can raise some of the concerns that they've had for a while, and they feel like now is maybe the best time to raise some of those concerns. And just the feeling heard part of it I think is already kind of trust building, and just noting things down and then saying, hey, maybe I can address this in future. So I think that's it's a combination of those things, and of course, you'll see where are maybe the pockets of the organization that are more open to this new role or whatever, and where might be the pockets of the organization that are less open, and then you can also kind of take that into account in your kind of trust building plan, I guess. But yeah, in general, I think talking is definitely one of the aspects that's going to help build trust, but the other one is just kind of delivering on small improvements. And I mean, I agree with what you said in terms of picking your battles and focusing on those things that matter. But sometimes it's small things that only matter a little bit, but that have easy solutions that might be actually the ones to address first, just because you just build a reputation for making a difference, and really improving the way that you work together, improving the product, improving processes.
Got it. Because a PM role, but as an individual contributor, usually you can, when you join a new organization, you can go full throttle, full steam with all your energy and try to make impact. But when you're a head of product, maybe you have a team, and I'll come to you whether you have a team or not, or are you a single person army. um, you, because there are people with different personalities. Okay, so you might be a high energy person, you want to move things, but you know what, you might eventually fail because you want to do a lot of things, but you have failed to influence others to rally behind you, to initiate changes. And I have struggled that in the past, and I am learning it the hard way. So what are some of the ways to gain allyship and support for some of the initiatives that you want to bring into a new organization?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I think that kind of comes, I mean, firstly, I wanted to add one aspect there, if I may. I think if in a head of product role, what is particularly, what makes it particularly hard to just kind of come in guns blazing is, in the end, you're only getting everything done through like people and processes and so on. And processes are only as good as the adherence to those processes, right? Like if you come in and say, hey, we're going to change everything, like we're going to change the way that we structure specs, we're going to change the way that we run our discovery and delivery processes, and you go in and say bam 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 bam, this is how we're going to do things, and people don't understand why, and people don't see the need for change, they're just not going to follow that with great enthusiasm, and then it's just going to fail because of that, right? I mean, even if people just tick the boxes, they're not going to live the new processes or live the way that you think the product organization should run. That's why it's, I think, particularly important in a head of role that you don't just come in guns blazing. It's kind of a change management effort, and everything you do is kind of a change management effort, and change management should always kind of start with understanding the status quo and the need for change and the impetus for change. So then kind of coming back to the question that you asked, which is how do you gain allies for the changes that you want to make? I mean, again, I think it comes back to understanding what are the problems, so like what are the pertinent problems, and what is the best way to solve them. And often, I find that the problems and the solutions are already there in the organization. They're just kind of unevenly distributed, I guess, so like talking to people and seeing what are the pressing needs, and it could be as simple as, a team saying, hey, we've been working kind of in isolation and we would love to be part, more a part, feel more that we are part of the overall organization, and kind of more connected to the strategy of what we're building. And, just already talking to them as the new head of product is probably going to give them the impression that, hey, somebody is finally listening to our concerns. And even if you then just make very small adjustments by just kind of regularly talking to that team or whatever it might be, that might already be kind of good enough as a first step, right? And the other thing there is, and that's kind of important to me, is that, I mean, for me, I don't really have a lot of predefined tools or frameworks or ways of working that I think must be followed. I rather, have a list of principles, or, maybe not even a list, but, just a set of principles that I try to live by, or try to like manage a product organization by. And, then I basically try to look at the problems and the solutions, also the ideas that the improvement ideas that people bring up with through that lens of like, how does this fit with the principles that I believe a great product organization should follow. And that means that I can often impact the change or impact the way that the organization is doing things in a way that I think is beneficial in the long run, while also essentially following what people naturally think should be done, right? So I think kind of finding that happy middle ground of the way that I think things should be done, and the way that the organization is currently doing things, and the ideas that people in the organization already have for how to improve things. Then it kind of feels like a natural evolution, and not like just a change that's being imposed from the outside by me. So that's kind of there my approach, and not trying to, I think upset the apple cart is what you said earlier, and I don't know if it's that really. I mean, sometimes the apple cart maybe needs to be upset if there's something where things are glaringly wrong, and you're the only one who notices because you've been kind of brought in from the outside and maybe don't have the blinders on just yet. But even then, I think what you need to do is you need to basically make people understand, right? Not just kind of point at the thing that's wrong and say that's wrong, but rather bring people along for the ride. So I think, basically instilling the common understanding of what the problem is. I think that's kind of the first step in any change management effort. And if you're brought in as a new leader, as a new product leader, and you want to change things, and chances are you will want to, then basically making clear that everybody understands what the problems are with the way that things are being done today is definitely the first step.
Got it. How do you, and this also I always think about, how do you measure the temperature of how you are being perceived as the time ticks? Okay, say, do you, is there a pressure to be likable? And so I usually think on these terms, because I feel that, no matter how good you are, how good a subject matter expert you are, your ability to influence people needs a certain kind of personality that others start liking you. Okay, so how do you ever think about it, or you don't have to think about it? There are ways where anybody can fit into influencing people.
Yeah, I think it's probably a combination. I definitely think there's not the one profile of person who can effectively lead or effectively influence. And I think one thing that's kind of a common thread in product management is kind of this leadership without authority, right? Like whether you're an individual product manager or a product leader, you're often not in a position to tell others what to do. And I think one of the principles that I follow is that in general that is not a way to build good products anyway. So it's kind of good that that's something that you kind of grow up learning. But I don't think that there are particular character traits that you need to have. I think there's definitely you definitely need to be willing to interact with people, right? And you need to be willing to interact with people a lot. With respect to likability, I think there's different kinds of likability, and I think some product managers, some product leaders are more kind of stronger on the personal, sociable likability. Just the ones who are connection builders, and just kind of always building rapport, on the interpersonal level with people. And that's definitely not my strength, I would say. I try to do that as best as I can, but it's not my strength. I think my strength is more in understanding the perspectives of various different stakeholders and just kind of putting myself in their shoes, and then making sure that as I talk through potential solutions, evaluate problems, I acknowledge what other people's perspectives are, and in making trade-off decisions or proposing solutions, that people that this somehow affects feel that their perspective has been taken into account. And I think that to me is probably the way that I'm the way that I think that I'm building kind of that likability is by just making sure that people see that I've heard and listened to them and seen things from their perspective, and that once they've talked to me, they can they can rest assured that things are not going to get lost. Their perspective is not going to get lost. And of course, you can never make decisions that please everyone, but then at least make it clear that you understood what the concern was, and at least try as best as you can to find good compromises, make good trade-off evaluations. So I think that's that I think is maybe kind of my way of going about this. And there are other ways as well, right? But I think you need to be liked in a way, but there's different ways of kind of liking people. And in general, I think everybody still knows that this is kind of a work context where it's about collaborating effectively. And some people do that more on a relationship oriented way, some people do that more in a transaction oriented way, but still it needs to be effective, essentially, and there's different ways to be effective.
I love this piece as well. Just to summarize, so what you're saying is you don't have to worry, lose your sleep if you're not naturally social and gregarious and connection builder. You might be, your strength might be understanding perspective, your strength might be empathy, your strength might be good listening skills, or you might not be social, but you might be a great listener and you try on other people's perspective. Or the third one could be, maybe you are good at getting the job done, maybe you're more effective. So there are multiple ways to not just survive but thrive in an organization. So
yeah,
that
absolutely.
was very, very well put. Thank you so much.